Wow, 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 guys. What a interesting last few days in the market. So, welcome back everybody, back at it again. Here to give you guys another breakdown. So, I'm going to be breaking down predominantly NAS, gold, and GJ. I'm not in on a trade on gold, by the way. This is a trade idea that I had. I'm going to be breaking down NAS, gold, and GJ. So, roughly NAS, the US 30, and the SPX are roughly going to follow the same analysis. Obviously, minor differences, but just keep that in mind as well. Like I said, but anyways, going over NAS. So NAS had roughly a 5% drop. One of the biggest drops in the entire year happened literally in a single day, which is absolutely crazy. That's insane. The CPI report came out higher than expected, which caused fear in the market, which obviously pushed price down. And if I'm not mistaken, right, I'm gonna pause the video here really quick. So, if I'm not mistaken, Jerome Powell is actually supposed to speak tomorrow. Yes. Retail sales, let me see. Uh, if I'm not mistaken, Jerome Powell is actually supposed to speak tomorrow, which could potentially also push price even lower, right? Now, what I'm looking at here on NAS, US 30, S&P 500 is a continued drop to the downside. So as you guys may see on my chart, obviously, looking at everything from a technical perspective, currently price did break under its daily resistance zone. The daily resistance zone I'm roughly looking at is roughly in between this 12,140 and this 12,200 level is the daily resistance zone that I'm looking at. The highest point would be 12,230, let's call it, which would be this high right here. So you can consider this all a rezone, all a zone of supply and demand. We have both here, right? So now that price had actually ended up closing under that zone, what I looked for today and the trade that I had taken today on NAS, which did make me roughly 25, 30 grand on my second position, I made an overall profit of like $50,000, was pretty much shorting from the resistance level down into the support level. The major support level that we need to be paying attention to right now here on NAS is going to be 12,000 flat, which is going to be roughly right here. This is the major support level that we currently have on NAS. As you can see, price rejected it and went in the opposite direction, and now we're trading at resistance. So what I'm going to be looking at hopefully for tomorrow is for a continued drop on NAS. As long as NAS can actually continue to drop, then we can expect NAS to come all the way down into 11,700, which is a huge move. It is a big move. It's definitely possible. Everything is lining up pretty nicely. Really, we just gotta wait for some volume to come into the market. You could be a little bit riskier and start looking to add positions in on a short now, because ultimately the risk to reward is gonna make sense. We're still trading at resistance. That hasn't changed. And if you were to just sell here at resistance and even just set a target of the main support level being 12,000, you can have a nice, pretty safe stop loss of up here being a little bit tighter, but at the same time, it's still a pretty decent size stop, and still potentially squeeze out a 3-to-1 risk to reward ratio. Now, it is a very risky position, simply because there's no volume in the market. If you want to be a little bit more conservative with it, then your stops would be up here above this resistance zone right here, where pretty much the higher the resistance level is. And then you can also target either this main support here, which again would be 2 times your risk, this support down here, which would be 3 times your risk, or the main target down here, which would be roughly 6 times your risk. So ultimately, that's a risk, a decision that you would have to take as the trader, right? So I'm going to be looking for NAS to continue to sell. Now, if you don't take a position up here, what I would be looking for roughly tomorrow is a break under, a retest, and then for price to continue to the downside. This is what we're going to be looking for tomorrow roughly on NAS, or for price to reject this area. Ultimately, I'm still short biased on NAS, and I will remain short biased on NAS unless otherwise. Now, if price were to start to break above resistance, which ultimately we would have to see a break above this area right here, right? Then at this point in time, I probably will no longer be looking to short. But I'm going to maintain my short bias until this price point breaks, if that price point breaks. Now with gold, I'm actually expecting to continue to go long. Now the reasoning behind this is simple. We are at major daily support, and typically when the stock market isn't going to be doing well, investors are going to move their money into a safe haven, which gold has always been seen as a safe haven. So at this point in time, it would be the time to look to start potentially buying gold, especially that we're rejecting 1697. So it's kind of like the fundamentals and the technicals are both aligning, which is kind of why I had that trade idea. Now you can also take the same trade idea as well, where it is an aggressive trade idea, but you could look to buy gold somewhere along here, maybe place your stop loss under this 4-hour low, which is a little bit tight, assuming that this is going to be our first target, which is going to be daily resistance at 1722. You may want to be a little bit more conservative because, again, we do have news tomorrow, and use a little bit of a bigger stop. This would be a swing type of setup here. I mean, this trade played out in roughly 16 hours, so depending on the type of trader you are, this could be a swing setup, but ultimately I'm going to be looking to buy gold back up into 1722. And for GJ, I'm kind of upset because last night during the boot camp, I was actually thinking about taking GJ shorts. Only problem was we were in the Asian session. Now, a lot of people in my, well, not a lot of people in my boot camp, some people in my boot camp thought that GJ could have potentially gone long because we have resistance here, and price at this time formed a very, very weak bearish candlestick here, being this doji candlestick, and price was engulfing. But what I saw was that price had ended up closing back under 166.348 resistance, came back up, rejected, and at that point in time, GJ was also rejecting this resistance level yet again here. So I was thinking about taking a short after this bearish variation pattern and set myself up with a trade that looks something along the lines like this, where I'd have a 25 pip stop loss and I was targeting the previous 4-hour low, which that literally would have just gotten hit, which this trade would have been absolutely insane. 5 times my risk and roughly gained 130 some pips. But you know what, guys, it is what it is. Can't really dwell on what could have been. You can only dwell on what actually happened and how you can improve always, right? So now the thing with GJ is, if we look at the daily time frame, we have a very nice engulfing. We have a very nice transition, right? We have support here on the daily being 165 to 66. So from an intraday perspective, we can look for GJ to actually pull back up into this zone here, right, by London session. We can look for GJ to pull back up into this zone here. Look for some form of a retest. GJ is also trading under the 21 SMA. Look for some form of a retest, and ultimately the target for GJ is 164. I'm going to continue to look for GJ sells until this 164 range. Anyways, guys, I have, kind of an emergency that I need to attend right now, but I didn't want to leave you guys empty, and I did want to make this breakdown for you guys, just to kind of give you guys kind of an insight on what we could possibly expect happening tonight or later tomorrow ultimately. So let's kind of see what happens. Ultimately, the markets have been a little bit choppy on NAS, the indices, these last few hours, obviously because of what happened with CPI, but let's wait and see what happens. Anyways, I will talk to everybody in the next video.